Good morning, everyone. It looks like we're going to have more of the same here. Been going on for a couple of weeks or so, and I don't know that today is going to make any difference. I don't know what's going to move things, of course, but we just aren't waiting here. Whether it's the impeachment, it's China, it's kind of over the top already with all of this. But I started with the Russell to review the Russell futures here because it has the most defined trading range, and you can see the hourly chart just how it whips back and forth, and it looked like we were heading lower and right back up, and here's the retest, and we're in the middle of the range here. So it truly is a frog in a blender type of a pattern. But just to step back as we always do, and it's one of the things everyone should do, is that when you see a pattern that just doesn't make sense, well, I shouldn't say it does make sense that it's just going sideways, but when you see opposing tails one way or the other, and maybe you see gaps one way and then the other way, and it really doesn't go anywhere. The next step, this is what we teach, in our method, the thought process. Well, what's the next step when I see something like this? Well, you go to a higher time frame, you condense the data to see if it makes sense. And we go to the weekly chart here and we see a consolidation at resistance. We still got a couple of days to go in this week with bottoming tails. And we just see that as, look, the opens and closes are about in the same area. So that's neutral, but it's hanging up there. Maybe it's just waiting for the next shoe to drop as far as the news goes, to continue the end of year move or back down again, right? So the thing is to stay away, set alerts above and below the range, and wait. Move on to other things. Don't try and trade this. I mean, if you're an intraday trader and you want to buy the support, looking for bounces, or sell the top with the appropriate patterns, it's all well and good. But as far as a swing trading perspective, right, it's just stand aside, move on to other things. Don't try and beat your head against the wall. Just set alert, wait. So let's just go through the normal process as we do. Like I said, I just started with the Russell because that's the one that it's just so clearly defined as, topping tails that don't follow through and bottoming tails that don't follow through. And then we had, yesterday's dip and recovery, and now we've got, another green bar for the moment. But if you just think about this on a closing basis, it's just like a little jiggly line going sideways. And so because the trend is up, we do make the assumption that the trend should continue. But if it breaks below now this pivot low, which is the most significant, it's the biggest tail, well, that would be bearish. If it can clear this high, well, should be off to the races on the move up. And, we always look at the ETF since it has, more data. And you can see why we like this if it can clear these highs. Maybe a little bit more of an aggressive approach, smaller position would be to buy the dips down there in hopes that it doesn't break down, and if it does, just get out of the way, or you just wait for the breakout. It's a choice, right? All right. So diamonds, let's just take a look at diamonds here. So they started to pull back yesterday. In pre-market, I spoke about the fact that this had a bigger red bar, a bigger reverse, potentially getting some kind of a pullback where the internals would line up ideally for a continuation into the end of the year. Reviewing the weekly chart, which just totally makes sense. If we did get a red week, to get some type of a pullback or chop within this uptrend and then looking for it to continue. It's foolish to consider calling a top in a market that has multiple time frames and uptrends, right? That's kind of foolish, but just logically, common sense saying, well, it would make sense, especially after a red bar like that or a gap reversal, to get a pullback into some support. That's just common sense. So yesterday was a little pullback day within the uptrend. no damage done of significance. We'll see where today goes. Spiders, similar thing, came down into the gap fill, into this support right there, recovered a bit. And so the question is, does this depth of retracement turn into a lower high here, which rolls back over, or do we just continue with the chop? You can see the choppy sideways action there and the gap up. And ideally, from the most bullish point of view, it would not have filled the gap. But now it has, with a wide range bar, which puts at least the trend in question on the 60-minute chart, where this is what we can say an expected type of retracement within this trend. Now, just to reiterate for some that maybe weren't here pre-market, we get new people on YouTube all the time. So just to reiterate that the thought process here of what was going on with this consolidation is that I said this gap up, it didn't produce that big of a bar, whereas after a resting period, you should get more of a push, and maybe in part because it was the gap. But okay, a resting day and then a gap reversal. They're just messages of, the market's getting a little tired here. It's been rallying since the October low, some type of retracement, possibly into the Thanksgiving holiday, which isn't that uncommon. And, the day after Thanksgiving, day and before, tend historically to be bullish. So maybe this is where this is going. We're a little bit more of a correction. We get our internals lined up and then, back up again. So we'll see. Okay. And Qs, same story, a little bit deeper there, right? Little deeper push, no, it's got a bottoming tail bar. It got deeper into the support, which again puts what's going on here in question a bit, meaning you had this time to rest, right? Give or take, it's a week and a half or so, maybe almost 2 weeks. You need to pull back after a rest. Kind of puts things in question. And we got a weekly chart where the momentum is stalling, the trend is up. So maybe we're going to get a little bit more of a correction, which would just be normal after a run like this. Now, how far the correction goes is the real key. Meaning, okay, if it pulls back to this green line, right, where there's the bottom of this consolidation, we could say, well, ideally it would have just went sideways here and broke higher. What happened yesterday puts that in question. We'll see what today brings. But if it was to pull back here over a few days, this would still be within an uptrend on the weekly time frame. And with the appropriate pattern, it would say get long, looking for it to go higher. Let's look at the futures, S&Ps, what's happening here. So far green, but it's coming up into resistance. How far can it get? You can already see the topping tail that's formed as it poked up in there. So with all of the hocus pocus indicators, trend lines, fib lines, extensions, so on and so forth, it's the simplicity of how the markets operate, or just that prices move between reference points of support and resistance. And at that reference point to the left is going to be open sell orders. And the buy orders that were down here begin to back off because common sense says, don't be buying up into resistance after a run from support. Take your money, right? That doesn't mean necessarily the short, but that's a choice. Others will say, well, that's where it should go down. I'm going to put a sell order up there to short. Again, it's a choice. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's not what I would do. I would wait for some other pattern. Nonetheless, it's just an obvious point where there's going to be sellers, and those sellers stepped up, and we've got a topping tail. So there was the message. Can it follow through? Does it go sideways and then back up to the top of the range? I don't know. Bar by bar analysis will tell me in an hour or two what's going on up here, or maybe in the first 30 minutes, we'll see some break on the 5-minute chart. Right now, the 5-minute is bottomed out. It's in an uptrend here. It's pulling back to where buyers should want to step up, but the retracement back down into this wide range 15-minute bar, actually a 15-minute I have here, is a little deep. So a lot of noise going on lately, and it is what it is, right? noise, breakout, didn't get very far, pulling back here, maybe want more consolidation. We don't know, but you can see the weekly chart here. If this closes down near the low, the expectation would be for a pullback within this uptrend, which should be viable on the daily. NQs, similar story here, starting to get this V kind of top, but you just can't really like the fact that it's retracing back down, or has retraced back down to the bottom of the resting period, right? Resting periods are supposed to fill the tank, and prices are supposed to be able to go higher, not go a little higher and retrace 100% back down to where they started, right? Common sense, no indicators needed. And so we'll just see if it actually breaks here, or whether, just sideways. That's the unknown. We don't know. So what do we do in a situation like this? Nothing, because there's nothing here to do based on this pattern. It hasn't violated the trend. If you're an intraday trader, well, that opens up other possibilities. But looking at this chart at this point in time, from my perspective, you don't do anything because it hasn't proven a breakdown. It could just be a sideways chop. Maybe it does break down, but we need some type of, I call it event, Dan calls it something. Translation is there's a bar that says, wow. Like, can you imagine today was gapping down to this level and it rallied back up into this level? That would be something, right? Right now it's just an inside day, which is nothing. And the weekly slowing momentum is nothing up into some resistance, so on and so forth. Right? Understand what you're dealing with and accept it, and don't get beat up. Dow futures pulling back. They rallied a bit off of the same little double bottom we saw elsewhere. It's up at resistance. What are they going to do here? Well, see the topping tail, same as the others. Does it roll back over? Can it go sideways for 30 minutes and break out, which means go long as it breaks out above these highs? With all that being said, it's just so far for the moment, the trading range is just getting bigger, right? So, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, as opposed to tight trading ranges that are, just a lot of choppy stuff like here, as opposed to the range getting bigger, which results in bigger moves and more opportunity. So we'll see. We already looked at the Russell, just kind of in a coma, whipping back and forth. It's kind of crazy kind of trading to see, such a rally. Well, as I said, sellers up here, but could it have held on? Well, maybe. Dive all the way back down, right? There was news at that time. So it dives back down and then a retest and the buyers step up again, and same old stuff going on. Oil, like that. And I wouldn't enter it here since that resistance, but I do like the fact that you've got this 180 reversal. That's a something, right? That's an event. You had this red bar engulfing kind of this green bar that tried to go up, which says, hey, that's not good. It's going to go down. It should go down. And it dives and it recovers immediately, which tells you that there are a lot of buyers lurking below. And now as it comes up into resistance, right, we'll just see how it handles that area up there. So we'll keep an eye on that, set an alert. Bonds are down a little bit here, right? And one of the things I said yesterday was, right, this is potentially a negative, right? When it started to turn up here, a negative for the markets. So as prices went up, interest rates come down. There's that inverse relationship, which, starts the worries of recession. But, the yield curve has improved so much that it's not such a big deal as it was before. So that's the yield curve right there, the shortest against the longest. And it came all the way up from the zero line, all the way up above the warning line of 0.5. So there's lots of room there for the bond market to wiggle around and not raise those recession fears. So one of the things I mentioned was that, hey, the bearish view is starting to use up some bullets here, and now this is backing off. Nonetheless, we're sitting here, you know, waiting, and maybe this reversal that's begun is the start of something. So when things are out of sync, you look at so many things looking for the edge, the clue, trying to find out the event that triggers a move, and it's not as clear yet, especially with a bar that is just beginning the day. Gold still can't get out of its own way. Uh, and this consolidation on the weekly time frame is getting a bit long. Not counting it out, but you know, I'd like to see this maybe next week kind of rally back up to negate this red bar. That would be a great sign to get long gold if that happens. You know, the other scenario, which we always have to have too, is that it breaks down to 1400 level. So I don't know what it's going to do. So I stay away, waiting for the event. Silver usually looks pretty much the same. Maybe it looks a little bit better. I don't know. But either way, just says to stay away. And lastly, the transports, which we always look at, wasn't a good day yesterday. It's kind of bearish for the markets with this break here. But this, you know, craziness that's going on. Transports can diverge with the other markets, show relative weakness. We've seen that over the last 2 years. And every time they lead the way down, when the market does turn, they play catch up. So keep that in mind for the future. And so here we are here with facing kind of another day of let's see what you can do to get out of this range or not. It'll change. I mean, how about days of sideways action before you buy oil? How about many days? Well, I guess, Robert, that's kind of what's happening here. But the sideways price action has just been, you know, like this green day. We could have said, well, let's buy above the high of the green day since it's consolidated, and it's followed by a red day. And now we've got a 180 and we're back into resistance. So you could buy this within the range with a stop below the green day and share size it for that, anticipating that it's going to go up. That is doable, right? So money management takes some of a lot of the exactness out of, you know, the ideal entry, so to speak. You can do that. Let me turn it over to Dan. It's getting a little late.
Good morning. Yeah, and if you did do, you know, oil, something like that at resistance, USO doesn't have much volatility, but you know that would be a strategy of starting off with a covered call, just selling out of the money call, expecting it to chop around a little bit. Oh, this USO looks much different than the actual crude that Greg just showed you. All right, opens. We only have one disaster today. I sent an alert out, moved and stopped to the 30-minute low. LRCX, we had a put spread that expires tomorrow under this base, and it's gapping under it. That's not good. I noticed AMAT was down. AMD got a downgrade. Actually, though, AMD is extended, so that one kind of makes sense to me. I guess the guy said it got ahead of itself, and maybe he uses technicals also, because it is climactic. You got an inside doji bar after, wow, what a breakout. I'd definitely be selling if I were in that. Let's look at the gappers here. Bison, 39 bucks. Very bearish gap with room to fall. I'm going to put that on my short watch list. Put it here in the middle. HEPA, 4.25, kind of looks like a penny stock toy. And I don't know if that's bio. SITM is a new IPO today. Nuon 1785. Wow, what a beautiful. That's a nice monthly. And look at that 2-bar reversal and then consolidating at resistance. This has room to 20 bucks on the monthly. But it's, you know, gapping too big on the daily and weekly. NT's had earnings 290, gapping up a little bit, but no price void. 30-minute high, maybe we do a put spread for tomorrow. RE, it's not a gapping stock, but it's in the news. I don't know if it's, I forget the news, doesn't even matter. I think raising its dividend, maybe something like that. But it's a 1, 2, 3 on the monthly. It's that weekly resistance, but daily, that's a little bull flag right there. You got flag pole, consolidation. Look at this beautiful 1, 2, 3. Wow, that was your no-brainer entry. Look, breakdown failure, range expansion, inside red bar, inside green bar, price void. Wow, that was pretty right there. Both for a put spread and a directional. Cub 62. Wow, that's a big ugly gap down. Gap's too big. SMRT. This is a retail stock. Wow, sub-dollar. Looks horrible. Sono. Hey, good morning, Bob. Sono earnings relatively flat. No pattern there. No interest. Lazy Boy 33 bucks. Gap in here to the 200. Big ugly gap. Breakout failure. Another retail disaster. Jack 87. Ah, look at this. That did you see in 1/8 of a second? That's a quality gap. Breakdown failure, 1, 2, 3, that didn't trigger. 100% retracement, broke out. Higher low, broke out. That's a buy setup. That's what we did on MT Live yesterday. That's a buy setup from a bottoming pattern, as opposed, you know, to a nice uptrend, as we said. And now it's gapping just over resistance with a big price void. That is beautiful. If it sets up in the first 5-10 minutes, beauty. Space, I think, I don't know, got an upgrade or whatever. There's no pattern. CPRT 8970, bullish gap to all-time highs. You got this little bottoming tail here. Bullish 1, 2, 3 on the weekly, that's strong. Lima Bravos, no pattern. I mean, it could be a day trade on the 15-minute chart, target 17. AMD, let's keep an eye on AMD. I'm gonna go on to sell a call spread. Bravo Victor 1830, bearish gap. I don't like the way it trades. Aqua 1675, bearish gap. Maybe 30-minute low. We'll come back to it. This thing got clobbered. You're swimming upstream though. It's gapping up a little bit, but that's a day trade long, maybe 10, 15-minute high. CPRT. Uber. Yeah, Greg, I saw Uber popping yesterday, but I like Lyft better. So I actually posted a put spread over the week's high. And it could be a swing directional. This might go up a few bucks. Tiffany 127 and change. That's a bullish gap. I have it in my upper right 5-minute window. Maybe 30-minute high. KRTX sounds like it Biotech of some sort. What a rocket ship. Wow. SPWR. Now, remember Greg talking about a something something? Over yesterday's high, even though it's sloppy, you know, topping tail resistance, this and that. It you know, could be a swing. But I like Jack and Tiff better. OPTN, 10 bucks. That's a bearish gap, gapping under the low of these two bullish bars. There's our LRCX ugly gap that we're in. I mean, there's nothing. That's why we love zero DTEs. Look at it making new lows right now. That's horrible. There's no way around. If you hold things overnight, you got gap risk. Unless you trade futures and can have a stop overnight. This looks, I don't like the way it trades, overlapping bars. CPRT, we talked about. Wow, Waymack getting killed. That is a Bear Island reversal yesterday. Yeah, SMH's breakout failure now. Extended weekly. We have a covered call in the video and a put spread. It's holding better than some of these others. S Black is one of these shippers. No pattern. BJ, another retail disaster. Macy's, another retail disaster. Let's look at the monthly. That is a bearish monthly. That looks like it's that looks like it can fall $5. A $14 stock. That's huge. You need a better entry on the daily. CGC. Oh yeah, I saw in the news the House approved something in the marijuana world. So we might have to, Greg, we might have to scan our entire marijuana list again. Plan, that's a big old bullish gap, but too big. On a pullback McGraw, maybe put spread. Schwab is buying Ameritrade. That is rare. Very, very, very. Hey, Debbie, remember? I said I liked this yesterday. And look at that. Somebody, I'll bet there's some inside traders in these bars. You know, you don't announce a buyout overnight. Those discussions have been going on for a long time. And here's Jack going. So I bet there's some, oh man, look at that. In one bar, Jack took off. You know, aggressive traders. It was such a compelling gap, 2-minute high. But then where's your stop is the problem. Your stop would have to be under this closing pivot until it got altitude. But that was, you could tell in my tone, that was the best looking gap I've seen today. On the long side, that is. Let's see what this B-zone is doing. This looks lower too. That's a bigger gap. Look at all these converging MAs. Wow, that's a nice MA example. OMF. Yeah, this was the one, Jason, somebody in YouTube asked about it yesterday, and I said I liked it. I said I liked the gap, and then I said just go down and find, you know, step 2, find a compelling pattern. And look, your compelling pattern was right here, 10 a.m. You got a little 1, 2, 3. See that? That's your no-brainer.